Alright, chat, we'll get started in a minute and a half. I accidentally did a repeat of Sylving episode 1, and I need to double check that I did not type the wrong thing in. I need to delete the extra video here. I did an extra Sylving and an extra trucking along with Dirk. Twice in a row, I accidentally had the wrong title for stream. But then I realized because Sylving and Arches are both visual novels, they're both under games and demos, so I didn't even need to restart it. Good going, me. Speaking of which, in the meanwhile, I will add a thumbnail to Sylving, even though it's only going to be up for like another week-ish, week and a half or whatever, on Twitch. It's on my YouTube, just a reminder. I put all my videos on YouTube that are visual novels. Correction, I do pretty much all my D&D on my secondary channel, all my trucking and city skylines videos on my secondary channel. But yes, visual novels go on the main channel, Dirk the Red Panda. Both channels are in the About page, so if you want to check that out, feel free to. Oh no, save changes. I guess I can't. Twitch is still being weird. Alright, let's get started. Welcome, folks! Dirk the Red Panda, here. Oh, here. Getting used to my buttons. With Arches. Y'all voted, and we are going to be doing both updates 5 and 6, so we're going to complete this whole thing today in one go. How long will I be streaming? I don't know. Probably 2.5 hours at least. If I can remember right, both 5 and 6 probably took me about 2-ish hours to read on my own without speaking it. I don't exactly remember, but Arches doesn't have like crazy long updates per update, so doing 2 of them in once is probably the equivalent of doing a single long Tennis Ace update. Maybe more of a medium to large size password update. Or smoke room update. It's kind of hard to tell, because different novels have different lengths. You're stuck in online classes. Woof. Good luck with those. I knew how that felt. Blah, blah, blah. I knew how that felt doing it a year or 2 ago now. I was doing that my senior year and half of my junior year. So, good luck. And good morning to Slow Panda. I missed some of the notifications. My chat window isn't the biggest in OBS, but on my on my phone. What the heck is this thing called? Yeah, my phone's like Stream Manager. I can see the chat better, relatively better. Small text, but it will do. Yeah, no problem, Crimson, or Raj, whatever your name is. All of them. Alright. So, yep, I having issues with my thumbnail changes, unfortunately, so that might still be the just random window screen or whatever. I can't really get it to be a special thing. Oh, it must be smaller than 1 megabits, 1 megabyte. Or is it, yeah, it's megabytes. I could change that. How big is it? How big are my descriptions? Anyway, last time we played, we were in update 4, and we were just getting started with the kidnapping. We are currently in Brian's place. If you're Cameron, if you're Devin, well, not like different routes, but Cameron is stuck in Brian's van, and Devin, I don't know if we exactly got to where Devin is. Devin and Arturo are both looking for stuff on the highway, as far as I can remember. Oof, 1.2 megabytes, so close. Alright, I'm gonna shrink this bad boy, maybe. I'm just gonna duplicate it. Can I? Sorry to be doing this midstream, but how's everybody doing in the meanwhile? Just, this is my introduction to stream. I normally like to just ask people how their days are. Sometimes I do, sometimes I forget. I'm not sure. What was the size again? No, not that. I like doing this sometimes midstream, just even though it may be a bit distracting, I just like to kind of chill with the chat and just have them there. But yeah, in the meanwhile, enjoy the music. But for reminders, I was just playing Sylving on Wednesday, and that was a blast. You could tell by the thumbnail that I'm about to post that it is interesting in terms of how the characters look. And I mean that in a good way. Like, you'll see if you watch the video. I go a bit nuts. It looks relatively fine. It's like 300, 400 pixels tall. Air's changed. Okay. Still having issues. As always. Twitch is doing things. Twitch is just being annoying. And, you know, you love to see it. Sorry about that. Let's vibe. I'm gonna try it one more time and then I'm just gonna be like, screw it, let's start arches. One more time. Oh, maybe if I finish cropping. No! It says it must be smaller. Oh, I think I might know what the issue is. I didn't do the copy. Watch it be like it's still bigger. This is the cover. Yes. I told you it's bigger than 1 megabyte. Why? It just does not like me. I'm gonna check and be like, did it? What? What the hell? Oh, brain. Brain. What the hell is wrong with my brain? Let's open it. Yes, vibing with Dirk struggling. The absolute struggles are real. I mean, oh, it is like 1.3 still. Okay. I don't know why it's the same size still. That's really weird. Sometimes you're just like, thumbnails or whatever, like, at least this isn't Twitch being annoying. This is just me having, like, I don't know what the hell is going on. Yeah, that's just me right now. I'm like, what are you doing, game? Or, I'm playing the game of photo. I'm gonna replace it. Fingers crossed, it is now small. Yeah, if anybody was there last Arches stream, you could remind me, or well, you could, sorry. Yeah, just a reminder that there is a lot of violence. I was about to say something else about, like, you could help me refresh my mind about, what is it that I'm playing, or last played through, but I think we all know. But yeah, besides that, wow, still the same size. Not sure what the hell is going on. Maybe if I delete it and just like save it as something else. Never small. Only big. Come on, Yao. We always have big. Gotta have big. Maybe if I don't save it as a copy, we'll do it better. Yeah, it is now 400 kilobytes. I'm gonna just change my artist description to introduction / me struggling with thumbnails, lol. And then we'll get started in a couple of minutes. 2 minutes max. I swear I'll get started. It's telling me the same exact thing, because it loves to be... Oh, never mind. If you all want to see it, it is in my videos list. We got the new hunky thumbnail. Maybe a bit blurry, but I tried. Alright, let's get started in a bit then. Load page. We were here. We went a little bit over on update 5. Or, well, update 4. We sunk in a little bit to update 5. And then update 6 will be there, so we're just gonna knock both out and not have to worry about saving. Update 6, yeah. So we'll get to there and it'll be like, you'll see why. Okay. Not return. I'm looking at my channel. It's meta. I am going meta on myself. I just wanted to check to see if the thumbnail's like too blurry. Because I could have increased the size a little bit, but I just went with the recommended size. Also wanted to stare at Agnar again. Alright. Here we go. Let's get started now. Enough staring at Sylving and being horny. Let's get started. Not a sip, come on. Completely based. Yeah, I was working on thumbnails for my Sylving video. It works on YouTube, but for some reason it only wants 1 megabyte on the Twitch page, so I had to shrink it down to like 600 pixels, but I overly shrank it. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get started. I am a bit flustered from all of that. And hello. Oh, hello, Idland. Could not see the name for a second. Glad you're here. Alright, let's get started in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Back to the drama. Or so the tragedy. Cameron's vision is blurry at first, and it stays that way as his eyes remain mostly closed, unfocused. Fear hitches in his chest again before he realizes that he'd been breathing normally without the need to focus on it. That's when he notices that what he can see is a bit odd. It looks kinda like himself. Cameron stares, still feeling groggy and out of it, trying to make sense of what he's seeing. It's him, his reflection, but it's hard to understand why that's the case because it feels like he's laying down. At first, the coyote wonders if maybe this is the floor mirror in the bathroom and that he'd passed out. Still, the angle is wrong, and that just leaves Cameron feeling more confused. The coyote closes his eyes again, trying to remember what happened last. He also begins to wonder why he's laying on something soft instead of the cold tile of the bathroom. Nothing makes sense. So he does the only thing he can think of to do at this moment. Dev? He hears something shift around next to him. Cameron tries to clear his throat, but it's bone dry, so he swallows instead. Dev? Dev? Shit. Something is pressed to his lips and, sensing that it's water, Cameron drinks, getting several swallows before it's pulled away. Hi, Zafrexo. Loving the tongue memes. Dear lord. Why, Moon? Why under the red moon did you have to make those? This is just Cameron slurping the water right now. Cameron then looks around, getting a full view of his surroundings. The voice hadn't sounded like Dev's, but Cameron can't imagine whose else it could be, and a large, furry brown shape moves into view. Cameron stares, at first wondering what could have possibly happened to Dev. But then, he realizes what a stupid thought that is. This is a different bear altogether. He also realizes that something is definitely wrong, that either he's still dreaming, or that he's in a situation that he can't even begin to understand. He quickly sits up and the old bear raises up a paw.
Hey, it's alright, kid. I'm here to help you.
The voice is higher pitched than he would have expected from such a large creature, and the coyote feels like he's heard it before, but he can't place it. Not right now, at least.
I'm Brian. What about you? Cameron?
Cameron responds automatically, even though a smaller voice in the back of his head tells him that this isn't right. None of this is right.
Well, hi there, Cameron. You're probably wondering where the hell you are, huh?
While the bear's demeanor is friendly enough, his appearance definitely isn't. Again, Cameron desperately tries to remember exactly what happened last, and where exactly he might be. He nods anyway, instinctively trying to keep up the facade that he's fine, and that he doesn't suspect that everything is wrong.
Well, it's a funny story, but I heard some shouting outside, and when I went out there, I found you and your friends. You were unconscious, of course.
Dev? Was he a bear? Cameron looks around hopefully, as if Dev might be there with them. It's only then that he realizes that they're in a trailer, and fragments of what happened recently start to come back to him. It leaves him feeling all the more uneasy.
Yeah, a bear like myself. And there was a cat too.
Artie. The memories of the past day and a half come back to the coyote slowly, and with it comes a feeling of anxiety and dread. Either he's in trouble, or he was in trouble, and somehow the bear is here trying to help him.
Well, I didn't get his name. He just ran off just as I was getting there.
Where's Dev? The bear, I mean. Is he here?
Yeah, about that.
The bear shifts around on the bed he's sitting in, making the springs squeak.
What happened is, after the cat ran off and you were unconscious, your bear friend, Devin, right? He decided to make a run for the highway to get you help.
Cameron stays quiet as he tries to absorb that. The bear's sentences make sense, technically, but at the same time, it's confusing. Why would Devin leave him here alone with this bear? Now Cameron remembers that they were on a trip of some kind. A trip to Echo. The voice. The trailer. Cameron starts to look around again, trying to spot a shotgun, because now he's starting to realize who this might be. I don't... He comes up short, at a complete loss. What he wants to say is that he wants to see Dev, but if what the bear said is true, then that won't be possible. Does Devin know I'm here?
Course he does. Seemed real worried about you. Said he would have that. Too many drugs. Said he would have to had the. Jeez.
Too many weeds. Woof. Sound white as fuck saying that.
Course he does. Seemed real worried about you. Said he would have had to.
Jeez, why does have had the cat sound like such a hard phrase? I am stumbling.
Course he does. Seemed real worried about you. Said he would have had the cat get help. But we're not even sure where he ran off to.
Why'd he run?
Well...
Brian pauses, seeming to think back, and also seeming hesitant to say something. Cameron tenses up, the feeling of wrongness returning.
It's kinda hard to explain, but something spooked him.
Recalling the events of the past few days seems to gain momentum, and now he can vaguely remember what happened just before he ended up here. He was standing in the forest, ears down, hearing that awful static. But what exactly happened after that is still a bit foggy. What was it? Or what was it?
Well, this might sound a bit crazy, but I've lived here a good while, and sometimes there's this thing in the trees that comes after me.
Thing? What an odd thing to say. But then he remembers something strange right before he lost consciousness. A dark shadow dropping on top of him before he disappeared into another world, locked in that terrible embrace. A shadow. Although he says it softly, the bear clearly hears him. Cameron swallows hard, still feeling like this situation is very off, even when considering the circumstances. But Brian smiles in a way that's almost sympathetic.
Did it happen to sound like static, white noise?
Cameron looks at the bear carefully before he nods.
Yep, I've seen it myself. Some of us just see things that others can't.
Cameron swallows loudly.
You see things too? Yeah, always could. Don't know why.
Through all the confusion and terror, and of all people, this bear seems to understand what Cameron is going through somehow. It creates in him a sudden sense of kinship with the bear. Then, Cameron remembers his phone, quickly pulling it out and holding down the power button. The screen flickers on for just a moment before multiple, vertical lines of black appear on the screen, which widens steadily before the entire screen display goes black. Cameron is confused, then remembers the fall into the lake, and he even sees some moisture still under the screen.
Oh, shit.
Brian grunts.
Your phone busted? Oh, shame. No service out here anyway.
How long ago did he leave?
About 3 hours ago.
He'd been unconscious that long? Still, the anxiety is telling Cameron to move. To go.
I think I should go after him. Thanks for your help, though.
Cameron suddenly stands, but a wave of dizziness comes over him. Oh, fuck! The coyote catches himself against the wall, feeling weak and confused.
Well there, kid. I don't think you're in the best condition to go out there. You might pass out again, and that bear seemed real intent on me keeping you safe.
Cameron has to lean against the wall slightly, catching his breath. He didn't realize that he still messed up. It would make sense for him to have been out for so long. It's just odd that it seems to be getting worse. Whatever that creature did to him, it feels serious. As if reading his thoughts, the bear brings up the entity.
Besides, I don't think you should go out there while that shadow creature is still hanging around. Been seeing it through the window a few times. Don't want to scare you, but I think it wants you.
Cameron glances up at the window nearest to them. Instead of the shadow, he's surprised to see Raincoat Monster just beyond the trees, partially hidden in a strange, crouching position. Stranger still are the odd, shivering, twitching motions the creature is making. Though the face is mostly hidden, Cameron can still tell he's being looked at. Even after everything he's been through, the coyote finds himself lowering his gaze quickly. Once again, just like when he was 8 years old, he is afraid of this hallucination. Or rather, he's afraid of this limitation of the hallucination, the imitation of it, and considering that it's moving so violently. That's what this is.
You see it?
No, I mean, it's something else.
Oh, what is it? Sometimes I see other really disturbing stuff in those woods. Well, most place in this town, actually.
It's something more personal. Cameron is caught between wanting to stay cautious of this man, but also wanting to confide in him. After the trauma of the past 2 days combined with feeling almost abandoned by his boyfriend, the coyote is desperate for some kind of connection. What kind of things do you see? Brian looks hesitant.
Don't want to freak you out more than you already are.
I'm okay. I'm just wondering if maybe we see similar things. Cameron smiles at him, and that seems to throw the bear off for some reason.
Huh. Well.
Then he seems to snap out of it.
To be honest, I see people getting killed usually. Not sure if it's real, like from the past, or if it ain't. Sometimes it just feels like something being made up.
Cameron can understand that feeling. Yeah, Another wave of weakness and exhaustion. Sorry, I'm still really tired. Cameron slides down the wall to sit again, still feeling out of it. But at least he feels somewhat comfortable with this bear now.
Makes sense, after what you went through. You want my bed?
I think an ad just popped up. Let's take another pause at nearly the exact same time. I didn't know if it was like 30 minutes exactly, or if it's like, I don't know why, it's like 30 minutes and 35 seconds every time. Break, I guess. It seems like it just ended. I think it might be 31:30. I'll just reread the line again. Alright, the reading resumes now.
Makes sense. After what you went through, you want my bed?
I'm good. Just need to catch my breath. He's not quite that comfortable with him.
This is gonna sound weird too, but I see a ton of stuff in this town, and sometimes it feels made up. Like, I saw a UFO, like an alien spaceship above a body today.
Brian stares at Cameron.
I see.
Just as he was beginning to feel comfortable, the coyote feels himself back on edge. Did he say something wrong?
I mean...
Oh, no, wait, that's Cameron.
I mean, I don't know if it was a UFO, but it looked... You're fine, kid. It's just that I haven't known anyone else that's seen something like I've seen, too. It was on that dirt road, right? Circular shape with a bunch of red lights on it.
Cameron perks up. There's little question in his mind now that this bear is definitely like him. I think I know who it is. It is Spider Monster. No context there. Partial spoiler, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, in like... Oh, shit. When did that space shuttle explode? Like, the mid-80s, I think?
This time, Brian lets out a little laugh of surprise. And maybe a little disbelief as well.
86 to be exact. Damn, that's crazy. I've met a few people like you, but you're on a whole new level, kid.
Cameron stares back, briefly wondering if he's still dreaming all of this. It's almost too jarring trying to understand how he ended up here with this bear. But if it is a dream, it's not the worst one.
Can you help me find Devin? Maybe you can take me up the road to the highway and maybe we could catch up to him.
The bear leans back, scratching his head.
I don't know about that, kid. He took off at a good pace, and I'll bet he's probably already reaching the highway by now. Probably in the process of alerting the authorities.
Cameron twists the hem of his shirt in his paws, feeling a sickening, growing knot of worry in the pit of his stomach. He just wants to go, to run and find Dev and escape the town with him. But the threat of what's out there is very real, and Cameron does not want to repeat what happened out there in the forest. And apparently, Dev already escaped without him. It makes sense why he had to leave him behind, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Only now are the memories of what happened during this blackout returning, and only now does he remember how it felt like being in hell. Can that shadow creature get in here?
Nah, it seems to avoid the trailer. Don't know why. You okay?
Cameron rubs his eyes with both paws.
I don't know.
His increasingly heavy breaths prompts Brian to crouch in front of him, patting his shoulder roughly.
Hey, you're fine. I'll make you something, okay? How does some tea sound? That always calms me down.
The pats jolt the coyote back to wakefulness, and he nods, if only to get the bear to focus on something other than him.
Okay. Great. I'll get started on it. For now, just relax.
Spooky. The wind whips violently in Devon's face. It's powerful enough that he can barely breathe. The ominous sounds of the sirens were really the only thing that guaranteed he'd be home as soon as he possibly could be. He always took their warnings seriously, because what they warned of always terrified him. So now, in this haze of pain and horror, he wonders why he didn't heed the warnings. The mile-wide tornadoes that rip across the plains of his home state evoke a primal fear in him that few other things do. He had felt that fear moments before his world became a red flash of pain. Before he saw Artie crumble lifeless to the ground at the same time a pop echoed through the air. I'll take a sip to that. Play the drinking game where you sip every time you hear echo. Good water. Remember to hydrate. Before he was made to drink from the plastic bottle of water the other bear had brought out of... Oh, no, wait. Before he was made to drink from the plastic water bottle that the other bear had brought out of his trailer. And before his paws were tightly bound above his head. And Devon briefly comes to the... As Devon briefly comes to in the red glow of this metal container he's in, to the sound of metal chains and the feeling of cramped heat, he knows he should be doing something. He should be helping someone. Someone he deeply cares about. Lupita, Artie, Cameron. His voice is rough, dry, on the verge of breaking. His chest feels as if it's being crushed. Devon sinks back into the darkness, even while his mind roils in terror. Even as the F5 tornado continues to barrel right towards him. Oh, there we go. I was worried I'd have to hit continue. Cameron sits at the table as the bear bussies himself. Jesus Christ. Twitch is maybe a degenerate. Sorry, furry Twitch. Cameron sits at the table as the bear busies himself near the stovetop with his back to the coyote. Again, the coyote contemplates leaving, either by asking Brian again, or just walking out the door. Another glance towards the window confirms Raincoat Monster is still out there, this time standing high in the trees, perched on a branch, still waiting and watching. Cameron quickly looks away again. He feels deep down that if he leaves, another terrible thing is going to happen. While he believes the bear's story about what happened, something about this trailer is extremely uncomfortable, making him even more anxious. He thinks that must have had something to do with his upbringing, the long, narrow space feeling familiar in the worst of ways. It's like suddenly falling ill and being reminded of all the awful feelings one has when they're especially sick. Meanwhile, Brian is chattering on about how chamomile is particularly effective when it comes to anxiety, and Cameron vaguely wonders why he's moving around so much if he's just making tea. Mostly, though, Cameron is trying to think clearly, get his thoughts to line up correctly through the fog he still feels clouding his brain. It's making him extremely tired, and a couple of times, the coyote is convinced that he's still dreaming. It's almost like he's high again, but without any of the positives of being high. His anxiety is already calming him down, though despite the worry that whatever was in the forest might have done some kind of damage to his brain. He focuses his thoughts on Devon, trying to think clearly. Would the bear really leave him alone like this? He could have at least left him a message to let him know that this is what he wanted, that Cameron is safe in this situation. But Cameron also knows that wouldn't have been all that practical. If Devon was really in a hurry, which he definitely would have been, he would have left him behind if he knew it was for the best, and if he knew the situation was safe. There isn't really a way he could have left a message anyway, except maybe for a text, but with no phone and no service. If this Brian guy really wants to help him, though, and if he wants to help them, he should have gone to the highway instead. He has to have a car, right? It's not like he can just survive out here in an old trailer. Cameron fixes his face into a pleasant smile, knowing that it seemed to set the old bear at ease whenever he did. Do you have a car? He looks so smug about it. Do you have a car? Oh man, Cameron. Silly old Cameron. I want to pet him for that. Do you have a car? Brian, seemingly absorbed in what he's doing, glances back.
Well, I kinda share a truck with another guy in town.
Uh-oh. Thank you for the pets, but the pet is a bit too high. I must lower the pet. Luckily, in Mix It Up, I can just simply do that.
Well, I kinda share a truck with another guy in town. He happens to be out of town with that truck right now. Of course he would be, right?
Oh, okay. Great timing, am I right? Brian seems to smile at him again. In fact, he actually does.
I can see why Daniel likes you. You're a friendly kid.
Daniel? Wait, who the fuck was Daniel? Daniel who? Oh, God. Oh, you mean Devon?
Shit, yeah. That brain doesn't really remember things like it used to.
You're fine. I pet myself. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Might lower it to 575 though. Or 570, sorry. One more pet. One more pet. I guess I was right, 575. My OCD is like, I gotta fix it now. Everybody wants to pet the Dirk. Oh, that's perfect. I like it. You're fine.
I want to myself.
Why? Frexo. Thanks for the pets. Cameron stares at the table, feeling like that exchange was very strange. But it's hard to think through the cloudiness. Despite the dulled anxiety, the feeling is worrying him more and more. I'm actually feeling really weird. I'm so tired.
Well, considering what happened to you, that makes sense. Not to pry, but do you do any drugs?
No.
Room.
Uh-oh. I've disappeared and reappeared as a behemoth. Slow Panda, why? If I was a behemoth, I could attack Brian right now. Anyway, I need to readjust myself. I think it's Alt-Shift-8? Yeah, Alt-Shift-8. Uh-oh. Some things aren't hiding. They're not what they used to be. Boop. There we go. Aw, the pet's a little bit off. Let me adjust the behemoth. The behemoth needs to move. Someone pet me. There we go. I think that's good enough. No. Oh, perfect. Oh my god, so many pets. Ah! Oh my god, too many pets. Help! I'm drowning in pets. Ah! Ah! Perfect. Anyway. Not anymore, at least. I mean, I had some weed like hours ago, but that should have worn off by now. Brian shrugs.
People always say weed ain't a big deal, but it's probably what fucked me up the most back when I first tried it.
Cameron listens to the sound of liquid being poured into a cup. Yeah, I don't think I like it. But I shouldn't still be high, right?
You shouldn't. But after my first time smoking, I felt high for fucking years after. Well, even when I wasn't touching the stuff.
Cameron feels a prickle of worry underneath the haze. Years?
Yep. It's what's it called? Depersonalization. Made me feel like my own paws weren't my own, and everyone looked all weird and distorted, like a filter was in front of my eyes.
Cameron vaguely recalls some of his own friends describing the exact same thing, even when their trip was supposed to be over. He'd experienced it himself while he was under the influence of various dissociatives. Having the same experience while he's supposed to be sober is borderline terrifying, though. Weed does that? His worry and panic breaks through the surface for a second, and he feels like, for that moment, he surfaced from the muddy depths of his confusion before slipping back under. He can't live in a dream for the rest of his life. But what even is his life? Sitting here in the trailer with an old, slightly smelly bear. Oh, he's probably more than slightly smelly. How did he even get here again? Where's Dev?
Oh shit!
Cameron suddenly grips the table, paws shaking as he feels as if he's lifting out of his body somehow, and that he has to hold on to something to remain in place.
Hey, you alright, kid? Here,
Brian ambles over to his fridge, opens the freezer, and pulls out an ice tray and drops a few cubes into the mug, the ice clinking loudly. He stirs it for a few moments, then turns back to the trembling coyote.
Hope you don't mind the ice, but it should bring. Hope you don't mind the ice, but it should be cool enough to drink now.
Still confused and terrified, and just wanting something to do to focus on, Cameron reaches out for the mug the bear is holding out for him. He takes it in a trembling paw, gulping it down. It's filled with honey and the strong taste of ginger, and it's unlike any chamomile tea he's had before. The amount of honey is surprising, and he briefly wonders if it's a bear thing, even though Dev never seemed to have much of an affinity for it. Still, Cameron doesn't get the full flavor of the concoction until he's finished it, and as he exhales, an odd, nutty taste mixed with what Cameron can only describe as dirt lingers on the back of his tongue. Cameron frowns at the bizarre, terrible tea. He can't help pulling a face as he looks into the mug, a thick, round glob of honey remaining at the base while dark particles slowly collect around it. It's distracting enough that his panic attack is terminated before it can really begin. Brian laughs.
Sorry about that. I like to add in kava root to soothe anxiety too. Should have warned you.
Cameron had thought the taste was somehow familiar, but he supposes that any kind of root would have an earthy, bitter taste.
Oh, it's okay. Just wasn't expecting it. I read about kava a few times when I was looking for ways to help with anxiety. Never tried it though. Well, get ready for it to change your life. It got me off of my chill pill meds. I do have some leftover bars if you need something stronger though. Xanax? I'll wait and see.
While that would be nice, Cameron already feels like he's falling asleep, so it doesn't seem like the best idea. While he mostly believes this bear's story, he doesn't want to be completely unaware of what's happening right now.
I'm guessing you've had some experience with it before, huh?
Cameron frowns at the table, not sure what to say. He doesn't really want to discuss his past with a stranger, even if the guy seems like he would understand. Brian puts his paws up, like he's showing that he's unarmed.
Hey, I don't judge, kid. I was into that lifestyle for most of my life before I started turning things around.
While Cameron is still cautious, he doesn't want to make it seem like he's suspicious. It doesn't feel like the best idea to sour things between him and the only other person with him in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, I did a bit of everything in middle school and high school. Only thing I got hooked on was opioids, though. Ugh, you and half the country, kid. That's a rough one.
The tiredness is starting to plateau, if not recede slightly, and Cameron feels an odd but welcome sense of empathy towards the bear. It must have been the kava kicking in. Brian's face appears a bit more defined and clear, and there's a weariness and warmness in his eyes. It was my first drug, too. I experimented with everything else because I was trying to find something less addictive and harmful. Brian shakes his head.
That's the problem with it. There ain't much out there that makes you feel that good. That's what I'm told, anyway.
Brian chuckles.
I took just one of my dad's hydras and ended up puking my guts out for hours. Guess I'm lucky that I can't keep 'em down.
Cameron thinks about that, about how nice it would have been if he had become violently ill whenever he tried opioids, or any drug for that matter.
Yeah, I'd say that's some good luck. I quit in college and haven't done it since, though. Good for you.
Brian gazes down at his nose at Cameron, starting to frown. Cameron's ears twitch as he seems. Brian's ears twitch as he senses a sudden change in mood.
Now, I don't mean to bring this up again, but did your visions get more intense when you did heroin?
At first, Cameron wants to correct the bear and say that he's never done heroin, but then stops as he thinks back. Of course, his visions got worse whenever he was on certain drugs, including opioids, but he had assumed back then that they were just agitating his already present delusions. It was only today that he'd made the connection between the drug usage and hallucinations, or visions.
Yeah, actually, and a few times on the other stuff too. Does that happen to you? Definitely.
Again, the feelings of empathy grow in the coyote's chest. There are others like him, just like him.
Maybe I'm not going crazy then. I keep going back and forth on that.
Brian chuckles a bit.
Well, not normal crazy anyway, right? Say.
Brian looks carefully at Cameron again, and the coyote is almost distracted by the glow that seems to be emanating from the bear's eyes. Oddly enough, the intensity is not vivid. Oddly enough, the intensity vivid. Wait. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just checking something. Oddly enough, the intensely vivid and defined fur seems to be rippling, as if blowing in the wind, even though they're inside. Is this kava?
You ever tried something more trippy? Like acid or shrooms?
Cameron shifts uncomfortably at the last word.
Yeah, both. Acid was fine, but nothing weird happened. Shrooms just kind of fucked me up, and I saw all kinds of things. Huh. Well, that's too bad. That one could be a real eye-opener. Oh.
Cameron isn't sure what else to say, feeling a bit uncomfortable again.
But, yeah, most drugs make you see more things. Only ones that don't are stims. It's why so many people here get into meth.
Brian chuckles again, but this time it sounds a bit dark, sinister even.
Only problem with that is meth still makes you see shit. But only because it makes you go crazy.
Arches and half circles.
Yeah, yeah.
Cameron looks back down at the table. He wonders about his mother again, and if maybe she was like him. Maybe she took the stimulants because she was just trying to stop the visions, but ended up starting a wave of hallucinations and delusions instead. Cameron watches the wood grain on the table shift and move slightly, like waves on an ocean. Uh-oh. And then it hits him. It hits him hard. The aftertaste of the tea, why it was familiar, why things are moving in inexplicable ways, why everything is feeling more fucked up by the second. He's been here before. A moment seems to blank out of existence from Cameron's memory because the next thing he knows, he's already standing up, the chair sliding back behind him. He stares at Brian with wide eyes, mouth open, but he can't seem to say anything. He can't think of what to say if the bear did what he thinks he did. Brian stares back, watching Cameron carefully Brian stares back, watching Cameron carefully in a way that tells the coyote that the bear isn't surprised at all by this reaction. And that makes Cameron even more afraid. The cozy, dreamy lighting of the trailer becomes more ominous, red and dangerous, and the bear in front of him seems to warp. Oh no, it's happening. Into a demon.
No! No. What did you give me?
Cameron looks wildly at the coffee mug.
You need to calm down. Understand? What did you give me? I think you already know the answer to that. So why don't you sit down and get it all together?
The bear's face is so warped, but Cameron honestly can't tell if he's real or not.
Was it psilocybin? Did you drug me with shrooms?
Brian says nothing, and he's right that Cameron knows. He could never forget this feeling. Also, I guess I should probably add to the description. Trigger warning, drugs, violence, blood. Alright, I think those are all three I could remember. Yeah. Sometimes I remember, sometimes it's like, yeah, need help to know. Anyway, he could never forget this feeling.
Oh my god, why? It ruined my life!
Cameron is heaving for breath, the sounds of his gasping almost drowning the bear out.
Sit down and I'll explain.
But Cameron has no intention of sitting down. The sensations and visuals are just as bad as last time, if not worse, and he's only at the beginning. The fear and panic reach a dizzying level, and Cameron is running around the table for the door. Then he's on his back, his chest, spine, and the back of his head aching. Oh shit. Brian is on top of him, and Cameron is on his back. He can see the coffee mug shattered on the ground a few feet away. Cameron struggles, wheezing for breath.
Let me go! I can't breathe!
Brian responds by squeezing his arms tighter, leaning more weight on Cameron's torso.
Stop! I'm sorry! I'm sorry!
Oh, I did add violence, I think. He doesn't even know what he's apologizing for, just hoping that maybe it will get the bear to stop.
And I thought you were cute when you were smiling.
The statement, for whatever reason, is the scariest part of what's happening right now. He starts to scream for the only person he could think of right now.
Devin! Help me! Devin! Devin! Shut the fuck up!
Brian sounds legitimately disgusted as he pulls himself off of Cameron. The coyote prepares to scream again, but sees Brian's foot lash out and kick him in the side, sending him up the base of the counter. Then, leaning over him with both of his giant paws on the edge of the counter, he starts kicking Cameron over and over. Cameron yelps and wheezes. The blows hard enough that he's worried the bear definitely is going to break something if he hasn't already. He thrashes and roils, trying to escape. Then, one kick catches him particularly hard at the base of his sternum, and he violently curls up, a loud, frog-like croaking noise escaping his throat. Brian pauses as the sounds continue emanating from Cameron's mouth. Cameron can hear the bear breathing heavily over him as Brian watches his agonized writhing, almost like he's fascinated by it. After nearly a minute, the terrible noises turn back to gasps, which then turn into sobs as Cameron stays curled up on his side, one arm around his midsection, while the other is pressed over his eyes. Hold on, am I blinking when I look up like this? I don't know. Whatever. Brian doesn't move, just watching as Cameron cries on the floor. At first, Cameron thinks it might be better to just keep his eyes closed and try to disappear into the darkness. Maybe wake up again, but in a new place this time. Anywhere seems better than here. But that's when odd, slightly curved glowing red lines begin expanding and shrinking beyond his eyelids, and Cameron whines at the terrible reminder of what's going to happen. He's going to trip, and it's going to be terrible. Cameron pulls his paw away from his eyes and finds that what he sees isn't much better. The huge bear is crouched in front of him, his fur now a writhing, pulsating mass of a thing that almost seems like another living creature covering the bear.
Listen, what you do next is gonna determine what's gonna happen to you.
This is a dream. It has to be a dream. Everything that's happened, not just in this trailer, but in this whole town. It has to be a dream, a hallucination, a trick. This can't be happening.
I need you to talk to some folks I used to know. If you're really one of those sidekicks, if you can fix my problems, I'll let you go like nothing happened.
Oh, terrifying. Oh no. Cameron! Cameron! Devin comes to again, and he blurts out the name without thinking. He is not sure how long it's been since the last time he woke up. It looks like I'm blinking this entire time. I'm closing my eyes as I read. It feels like hours, possibly even days, since he was last conscious. He'd been dreaming. Something about insects crawling and biting his arms. And tornadoes. A twisting force. He realizes that then his arms are what brought him back to the waking world. They'd fallen asleep, and now the tingling is so bad that it feels like they're covered in crawling, writhing ants made of molten lead. The bear grunts in discomfort and tries to bring them down from above his head, but he isn't able to. They come up short, and he hears a rattling sound close to his ears, which twitch at the loudness. Chains? Devin freezes, keeping his eyes closed, unsure of whoever did this to him is close by. Although it's hard to think through all the haziness, the memories come back to him rather quickly. First, he remembers walking deeper into the woods before the strange bear went into his trailer to get something. He came out with a bottle of water, claiming it was for Cameron. Then, after walking further into the dense forest, they came upon a white van. The exact kind of van that would make most people suspicious. Devin did become more suspicious, but by the time it was already too late. The old bear had pulled a gun on them, one that wasn't a shotgun, and told them to get in the van. Artie started to run, and the other bear didn't hesitate to shoot him, aiming for his head. Devin isn't sure, but he swear he could see that he saw a spray of something, whether it be fur, blood, or worse, fan out from the back of Artie's head before he dropped. Devin's fingers and toes clench inward as he thinks about that moment. The sound. The suddenness of it. But mostly, he remembers the way Artie fell. It was instant, like strings that held him up had been cut, crumpling so quickly that Devin is sure that he'd been killed. At that point, Devin did everything the old bear had told him to do, including laying Cameron on the rough, desert floor. Devin tries to keep from whining as he wonders if that might be the last time he saw Cameron. And then laid down in the van and letting him bind his arms up. He'd thought about fighting back in that moment, but it was so quick that before he knew it, he was secured and he was made to drink from the bottle. Now he's in the very center of the tornado. A twisting force. Devin clenches his eyes shut even tighter, feeling moisture. Devin clenches his eyes shut even tighter, feeling moisture gather at the corners. Around the point is equal to force times distance. But Devin opens them a moment later, realizing his captor would have seen all the movements he'd made. Perpendicular to force. He's alone in the van. His eyes sting, and the bear realizes that he's sweating heavily. Honestly, what are we watching? What are we watching? What is this representative of? This isn't gay. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose my mind. Table flip. Oh my god. We can't flip a table right now. We're passed out. Oh, Trixie. Gotta love it. The metallic box he's stuck in is hot, almost overwhelmingly stifling. He worries for a moment that he's slept through the night, and now it's sunrise and he's about to cook to death in this van. But after gauging the light, he decides it's still around sunset, just a few hours after what had happened. After Artie had been killed. Shit. Devin squeezes his eyes shut again, feeling tears leak out and into the moist fur on his cheeks. He allows himself this moment, but quickly focuses again, knowing Cameron is still out there with that bear. That's enough to get a rise out of Devin, one that builds into a wave in his chest. A combination of adrenaline and terror, but mostly fury. While the brutality of this backwards bear evokes fear in Devin, it also makes him angry. That anyone would feel they have the right to do what the old bear did.
Room.
Oh, back to normal. He opens his eyes again and takes in his surroundings. He's lying flat on his back, arms stretched above his head. He can feel that it's a pair of handcuffs that are holding him in place. It turns into a dark violence version of porn. Nah, it's not. It's not. He can feel that it's a pair of handcuffs that are holding him in place. There's enough give that slowly he's able to turn over on his stomach. The action is incredibly painful, and Devin can't help but grunt loudly, his arms feeling like they might fall off as they spasm. Yeah, I did add a sound for the transformation, just because I was like, there's nothing there and I wouldn't know if I was, like, switching. Either way. Slowly, painfully, he pulls himself up into a kneeling position, getting a better look at his predicament. He realizes then that these handcuffs are more like shackles, meant to hold bear-sized creatures like himself in place. They're bolted into the floor of the van. Devin glances up suddenly, his ears catching what sounds like a faint cry from outside the van. Cameron! Devin's voice comes out hoarse and cracked once more. Was that Cameron? It sounded like him. Devin is still groggy from whatever was in that bottle of water, but he's sure he's heard the distinct sound of his boyfriend's voice. The fact that it's now so suddenly absent convinces Devin that was definitely Cameron. He strains to listen for several more sounds, but can't hear anything. He looks down at the heavy chain linking the metal cuffs around his wrists. Unbreakable. Still, he finds himself foolishly yanking at the shackles, hoping there's be some kind of give in the slightly rusted chains and bolts. Shit! And I said that loudly. Tears filled Devin's eyes, the feeling of falling forever returning. He'd felt this way only a few times before. The first time being while he was running home, after he'd found Lupita's body. That is, definitely a misplaced oof moment. The last time being when he saw Arturo getting shot. And now, knowing that his boyfriend could be at the mercy of this bear whose intentions Devin can't even begin to guess. He just knows that they're very, very bad. But seeing the faces of those people, it changes something in Devin. A cool, icy calm descends on him, and he looks at the chains carefully. His classes in physics had taught him all about the way in which forces exerted can seemingly accomplish things that seem impossible. So, even while his heart hammers into his ears, and even while his brain is clouded with a dense fog of sedation, Devin analyzes the chain and the bolts holding it in place. Torque. Alright, I'm going to take a quick ad break pause here because it's going to come up in like 10 minutes. For now, enjoy the trippiness. Well, I mean, I don't really need to save. I saved one line before. Whoa. Oh, there we go. That was the line we were on. Alright, we're going to take a break here. 1, 22, 30. Another ad break. This will probably be the last ad break, at least intentionally. Otherwise, you have like another hour before another one comes up. So, 30-second ad break for y'all who are not subscribed. So, set that up. We'll be right back. Also, I'll be back in like 3 to 5 minutes. Just gonna hydrate and maybe a bio break, not sure. Alright, apologies for that light delay there. Let's get resumed right at the hour and a half mark. Alright, we are back. Just taking an extra few seconds to hit save. Let's get started. Did it still play an ad for y'all? Ah, that's annoying. Sorry about this. Here we go. Cameron stays curled up on the floor for what feels like a long time. He had ultimately decided that they'd rather watch the harmless, pulsating aches dance around behind his eyelids rather than the nightmare the trailer was becoming. Every minute or so, the reality of the situation hits the coyote, and a burst of whimpering gasps escape the muzzle for a few minutes before fading back to only whimpering. He would stay down there until his trip was over, but Brian ended up pulling him back to where he was sitting. At this point, the coyote doesn't fight the bear, going limp while his body is being pulled along. For a minute, Brian tries to get him to sit in the chair, but eventually just gives up, dropping Cameron next to the table where he just lies on the floor. The coyote listens to the old bear moving around the trailer, though it's barely audible over his own gasping sobs. Eventually, those lumbering, shuffling footsteps come closer, and Cameron knows that the old bear is crouching next to him, though the coyote still doesn't open his eyes.
Listen, kid, since you ain't gonna calm down, you're taking some Zans. Got it?
Cameron listens, but doesn't move, afraid to do anything. Then he flinches as a rough, calloused paw grabs up his chin, forcing his mouth open slightly. Finally, Cameron opens his eyes a bit and almost gasps at the vivid red lighting, which keeps him distracted until something falls into his mouth. A pill, and Cameron recognizes its distinct bar shape and bitter taste. Brian holds out a cup, a plastic one that Cameron looks at with undisguised fear.
It's just water.
The old bear gestures at the counter where a gallon jug sits. When Cameron still doesn't move, Brian sighs. Then he gets up, grabs a cup straight out of the sink, and pours it half full before drinking it. Cameron's mouth is as dry as the desert surrounding them, likely due to a combination of drugs and fear, and he really does want to swallow the pills to get rid of the taste. So he takes the cup and drinks, swallowing the Xanax, and despite his fear, he drinks until the cup is empty. He vaguely remembers his high school friends telling him to drink water to make his trip less intense. Cameron has the feeling that it probably won't change anything. Brian takes the cup from the coyote's limp paw, and it takes Cameron a second to realize that the bear is holding out another pill that looks like a small red square.
Now put this one under your tongue.
Cameron stares, trying to figure out if it's just the trip making it look that color or... Brian sighs again, becoming more impatient.
I broke a third off the bar I gave you.
But now, Cameron is sure the pill is actually red, and he draws back. A counterfeit pill, and that probably means it's cut with something. Something like opioids. I don't. Brian slaps him, the strike coming so fast the coyote isn't even sure what happened. The sudden, numbing sting on the left side of his face, along with the bright flash of light, is very, very familiar, though. And Cameron feels as though he's traveled 7 years back in time. His delayed reaction is a surprised gasp as he raises his arms over his face. The bear yanks his arms back down and thrusts the pill at his muzzle. This time, the coyote opens his mouth willingly, maneuvering the pill to sit under his tongue. His movements feel almost robotic at this point. To Cameron's immense relief, this seems to satisfy the bear, and Brian gets up from his crouching position, backing away. The coyote sits for a moment, then slowly drags himself under the table, huddling in a corner as tears well up in his eyes again. After going through all of that, and knowing that there's plenty more to go through, Cameron longs for Devon more than ever has. Cameron longs for Devon more than he ever has before. Though he waits until the pill dissolves before asking the question that he dreads hearing the answer to. Is Devon, the bear, is he still alive? If this giant, violent bear had encountered Devon and Artie, there's no telling what he might have done to them. His heart drops as the bear seems to hesitate. Please tell me the truth. Cameron needs to know.
The bear's fine. He's locked up, but fine.
His tone sounds genuine, and even though Cameron will never trust him, he has to hold on to some hope. And if I do this for you, you'll let him go too?
That's the plan. He's your boyfriend, right?
Cameron isn't sure how to best respond to that, so he doesn't. Brian shrugs.
Doesn't matter much to me. Just do what I tell you and you'll both be out here by tomorrow.
It's quiet for a moment, and Brian moves to the other end of the trailer, opening the fridge and doing whatever it is he does. Cameron doesn't bother keeping track.
Let me know when you start seeing shit. Got something to do real quick.
Cameron blurts out the other question, weighing heavily on his mind. And Arturo, the cat, is he... Brian doesn't look back and just sighs again. Cameron doesn't ask any follow-up questions, feeling like he's got his answer. The thought that Artie might be gone is too messed up for his drugged-up mind, especially because he feels certain that he can't be gone. Cameron can't explain why, but he just feels it. He feels Dev, and he feels Artie. Brian stands next to the door, holding a plastic water bottle.
Gonna go out for about 5 minutes. I'll be right back next to the trailer. So if I see anything I'll shoot your boyfriend in front of you. Then I'll kill you. Eventually.
Cameron doesn't move. But soon the trip intensifies, and he hugs himself, the movement making his ribs ache from the earlier kicks. He just watches the colors. He just watches the vivid colors and shapes of his hallucinations. Meanwhile, the acrid taste of Xanax lingers on his tongue. He hadn't felt any pain. He doesn't feel any pain right now either. Not physically, at least. It's something deeper. It's about who he used to be, who he is now, who he is about to become. Something profoundly terrible has happened, and it's changed everything. He knows that much, at least. What he really wishes to know right now is who the hell even he is. He tries to think back to what he last remembers. Standing in front of everyone in the 2nd grade, his trembling paws holding his book report, he clears his throat, trying to figure out how to put his sentences together in advance. Speak up, Arturo. The whole class needs to hear you. Arturo. That's his name. Arturo Herrera. He opens his eyes. But how did he end up here? Where are his classmates? 2nd grade. Or was it 3rd? No, he's positive that he's at least in high school. He tries again to remember what happened last. He was sitting in the junior parking lot with his girlfriend. She was upset because another girl at the school was being mean to her. She's a Jaguar, sitting in the passenger seat of his beat-up sedan, one of her feet up on the dash, and he's leaning towards her to kiss her on the cheek. What's her name? Sarah Mendoza. Or was it Montoya? But now he remembers that they didn't last long at all. Maybe only a semester. Probably because he sucks at comforting people. He does always say the wrong thing at the wrong time. But he still had several girlfriends after her. Up until... Maria? His voice is so alien, so strange. It startles him a bit. What's even more strange is how hard it is to even say her name. He stutters, and he has to chew around the syllables like he's biting at the letters. As he does, he notices a sour taste in his mouth, and he can smell vomit. Looking at the forest floor in front of his face, as he sees a dried up mess of what he's sure is the source of the smell. Bits of something orange and mushy, and chunks of what he recognizes as jerky. Things are starting to come together, but it takes a long time, maybe even an hour as he goes in and out of consciousness. Maria, Pueblo, Devon, psychology, graduation, behavioral tech, road trip, accident, echo. Cameron, THC cartridge, visions, ghosts, panic, bear, gunshot. Gunshot. He's been shot. It's only now that he realizes his current position. Curled up on his side, arms folded up in front of his chest. He tries to move his arms, but like everything else he's trying to do, it's very difficult. His muscles feel unnervingly weak, and every time he moves, it comes with an uncontrollable twitching and trembling. Arturo stares at his paws, watching the tremors, trying to quell the panic. Finally, he slowly manages to sit up. Immediately, dizziness overtakes him, and he has to pause for several seconds before he is sure he's not going to fall back down. Once he's sitting up, his stomach turns and he dry heaves, and that's when he feels the pain. It's not terrible, but the deep, cold throb at the back of his head feels very wrong. With a shaking paw, he reaches back and finally feels the damage. The fur is crusted and matted, becoming a bit damp as he gets closer to the source. His fingers brush over a slight gap, like there's a small crater in his fur. As he presses down, he realizes the crater goes past the fur and past the skin. And then he feels something oddly hard and almost sharp. Arturo gasps, realizing the stiff, jagged thing he's running a finger over is his broken skull. He jerks his paw away, breathing hard. He was shot in the head. In the head. He remembers deciding to run since the shotgun wasn't loaded. But then the bear had taken out another gun, a handgun, and then... How is he alive? How long will he stay alive? Is there a bullet in his brain right now? He knows he needs something, so he tries to ask for it. Need shelf. He struggles to not stutter, to say the right word that he knows he's trying to use. He knows that this is very, very bad. Devin was hurt too, maybe even killed. And Cameron, he was already hurt. A message came in. I have Do Not Disturb on. Cool, my brother's on a date. Cool. And... okay. Anyway, total sudden change of pace there. I am terrified. And Cameron, he was already hurt, and it was a monster in this forest that hurt him. The cat brings his knees up to his chest, putting his arms around them like he's a child. He feels like a child, helpless and completely confused as he sits injured in this terrible forest. This must be some kind of awful dream, and he wants to wake up. But even though everything feels unfamiliar, surreal, dreamlike, he knows this is real. Arturo feels his face crumple as he starts to cry, pushing his forehead against his knees. I need something. No, wrong word. I need someone. There's some relief as Arturo feels like he's improving at least a little bit. Maybe this is only temporary? He had been told several times in his psych and neuroscience courses that the brain is plastic. The fact that he's recalling these memories, making sense of these memories, gives him hope. But there are still certain things, very simple things, that are missing.
Ruined my life.
Arturo jerks his head to look up, heaving again as another wave of dizziness and nausea sweeps through him. Cameron? He looks in the direction of the sound and sees a trailer, partially hidden behind tree trunks and bushes, about 30 feet away. His right ear pops loudly several times as he rubs at it, feeling fluid come out. He knows it's blood. The cat slowly begins to stand up and immediately gets a terrible shock as he realizes the weakness he felt in his arms is also in his legs. He struggles and stumbles his way to the tree, trying not to panic again before finally leaning up against it.
Go! Can't breathe!
Arturo realizes he's not the only one in this nightmare. Did the monster come back for Cam?
I'm sorry!
Arturo starts moving towards the trailer before it dawns on his shattered, bewildered mind that he's looking at the bear's trailer. The one that shot him, and he must have Cameron in there.
Devin! Help me! Devin!
Arturo flinches back at the sound. His fur bristles out along his spine. Eyes wide as Cameron's screaming echoes through the forest. Take a sip to that. The cat looks around helplessly, hoping that Devin does come to help. Even though that evil bear is bigger, Devin's a pretty big bear too, and he would stand a much better chance than he himself would. Thuds, followed by yelps and howls, come next, and finally, it's too much for Arturo. Dev. Cameron. He can't go in there like this. He knows that, but he can get help. Maybe. Depending on how bad it is, these problems he's having could get a lot worse over the course of just a few hours. But he has no choice. While he knows he has a car, he also knows that he can't use it, even though he can't remember why. He remembers that there's a highway, the one that they should have gone to the second he got here. He needs to get them all help. So, with one more terrified look at the trailer, he starts to make his way out of the forest. At first, Arturo is filled with a sense of hopelessness as he finds out just how hard it is to walk, with his right side being almost limp. It feels like half of his muscles have just wasted away. But, after some trial and error, he finds that if he widens his stance a bit and swings his arms in a way that looks a bit lopsided, he's able to keep his balance. His pace is reasonable as well, so, swallowing down his panic again, he makes his way back onto the dirt road. Even though the disbelief of his or even through the disbelief of his situation, and even though he's terrified for Cameron and Devon, he feels something deep down that's even worse. He tries to ignore it, but it gnaws at the back of his brain. He's dying, and he can feel it. Devon struggles with the handcuffs, trying to get the chain into the position that he wants. He pulls his paw up until the chain is taut, then moves slowly in a circle around the bolt, until the chain twists on itself. That was the easy part, and based on the tension he felt being put on the chain links, he had been feeling pretty confident. But then, he'd spent what feels like the last hour trying to actually put enough force and weight into the motion so that the chain would break. While the twisted chain is taking most of the pressure off his own wrists, it still hurts. Devon can see through his fur that he's already starting to bleed from his wrists, and fur is coming off in small tufts with each failed twist and jerk. Come on, damn it, please! After another failed heave, Devon slumps with his paws pressed to the floor of the van, gasping and sweating. A wave of dizziness comes over him, and he ends up pressing his face to the metal floor. Please, please help me. Devon half-heartedly prays, just in case there is something above all of this. Footsteps. Devon scrambles to twist back around and step over the anchoring bolt so that his paws are behind him again, sitting up to face the back door of the fan. It opens, and Devon finds himself staring at the bear that did this to him. Even though he doesn't want Cameron anywhere near his man, or anywhere near this man, seeing that the coyote isn't there with Brian sends panic through the younger bear. What do you want? Where's Cameron? Please, shut it! Devon watches with dread as he sees the huge bear holding that water bottle. Please, just tell me where you want. I'll give it to you. Just let me see him. His teeth snap together, and the next thing the bear knows is that his head is resting against the metal cage partition that separates the back of the van from the seats. Dazed, his chin is on his chest, his arms under his back, forcing him to arch his chest and stomach towards the van's roof. Then, Brian is on him, pressing the bottle onto his lips. Dazed from the punch, Devon can only mumble in protest. No, no! Devon sees the look in the other bear's eyes, and he knows that eventually he's going to have to drink from the bottle again. Feeling completely defeated, Devon can only plead with the man. Wait. Just wait. Just tell me what you want. Is he okay?
Boy, you're really starting to piss me off. If you don't do what the fuck I tell you.
Brian grabs Devon's chest fur in both paws and hauls him up so he's sitting in a more upright position.
I'm gonna take it out on your little cocksock yotes, you understand me? Now, shut up!
But Devon can't shut up. He's half convinced that Cameron is already dead. Please, just let me see him so I know he's okay.
Alright. I was gonna say you already hit him 1 good hit. Now it's 2. Wanna add a 3rd?
Devin just stares. Of course, he knows that Brian doesn't need an excuse. That if he really wants to hurt Cameron, he can. Because there's nothing Devin can do. He can only do what the older bear tells him to do, so he opens his mouth. Slowly, Brian pours the slightly bitter water into his mouth, and Devin drinks. Even though his body wants to keep drinking, Devin starts to pull back after only a few swallows, as if he's had enough, and doesn't even suspect the water is drugged. But Brian pushes the bottle hard enough that Devin's lips are painfully mashed between the plastic and his own teeth, and he's forced to keep drinking. Even when he lets a tiny bit dribble out from the corner of his mouth, Brian growls more threats at him. Eventually, the water is gone, and Devin hangs his head in defeat as Brian pulls back, backing out of the van. Devin squeezes his eyes shut, wishing this fucking bear would just tell him what's happening, what he's doing to Cameron, why he's keeping him alive. But the younger bear is too afraid to talk, too afraid of what Brian might do, and without another word, the van door is slammed shut. Cameron stays under the table, the Xanax having kicked in fully by this point, leaving the coyote in a bit of a quiet, stoic haze. Thanks for the pets, but I'm really sad right now. It's just making me feel really sad. His sobbing has trailed off. Not much emotion left in him, aside from feeling numb. His trip is getting more and more intense, and he knows that the peak is nearing, maybe in another half an hour. Still, he begins to notice things that he's sure aren't part of his trip. A presence not too far away, one that knows very well. A presence not too far away, one that he knows very well. Dev. With no idea what he's doing, he instinctively reaches out towards that warm energy, but then he's interrupted by another presence he doesn't recognize, one that's much closer. Cameron gets on his paws and knees, looking out from under the table. This vision is definitely different than anything he's experienced before. Unlike the dreamlike, reality-altering psilocybin, the vision he's entered has a lot of clarity to it, like he's not even tripping at all. The figure of something, someone appears before him, and Cameron knows everything immediately. Benjamin Kowalski, a rabbit born in 1977, ran away from his Pueblo home when he was 16. For several years, he moved from city to city, sometimes in surrounding states, before settling in Peyton. He stocked shelves at a grocery store, and the extra money he saved up would fund his weed supply. Brian was his dealer. In September 1998, he agreed to let Brian take him to his trailer home in Echo. He was promised 2 ounces of weed in exchange for 1 night of love-making, as the bear had put it. Benjamin wasn't gay, and even if he was pretty sure Brian wouldn't be his type. 2 ounces was a lot, though, and way too good to pass up. After 4 days of torture, Brian accidentally strangled him for far too long, and Benjamin didn't regain consciousness. Of course, Brian planned on killing him anyway, so he did. The bear was only disappointed that he didn't get a few more days with him. Timothy Esposito was a skunk born in 1985 in a decaying industrial Midwestern city. He transplanted to Mesa, and in May 2005, that was where he attended a BDSM-themed event in an unused warehouse. He liked breath play, and so did Brian, so they fooled around a bit. He didn't much like Brian, but the bear liked him a lot. Brian liked him so much that, in fact, that he followed the skunk as he walked home after the event and kidnapped him on an empty street. Timothy was strong and almost escaped multiple times, once managing to leave the trailer before getting caught just a few dozen feet from the dirt road. Brian continued their breath play, except now it wasn't play at all, and after 2 weeks, Brian again suffocated his victim for too long. This time, Brian thought he was fairly successful in keeping his victim alive that long. Daniel Gallegos was a ferret born in 1996. He was from the Sonoran capital, but was staying with his family in Mill City to work a summer job. He was saving up money for his university tuition. In August of 2014, days before he was meant to head back to Sonora, he was met outside a club before being kidnapped and driven to Echo. Brian was able to keep him for an entire month, and even though a few of Brian's customers had seen him tied to the torture rack, no one said a thing. Eventually, Brian seemed to decide he'd gotten all he could out of the ferret, and he bludgeoned Daniel to death with an old tire iron, just because he wanted to try something different. The bear couldn't believe how long it took, how hard he had to hit the kid before he finally stopped moving. Cameron! Oh, no, that's Devin's voice. Cameron! Cameron is jolted back into reality as he's yanked up by his shirt so he's not even touching the floor. Brian's paws hold the front of his shirt while shaking him violently. What? Why is it? Cameron kicks around to try and get to his feet on solid ground again. Despite being almost overwhelmed by the numbing calm of Xanax, it's not enough to stop the primal fear Cameron has of this bear. Especially not after seeing the horrors he committed on those men. What he'd just seen was condensed, distilled into an easy-to-follow series of events. But all the while, he'd absorbed all the tiny details too. He knows Brian promised these men many things. That he'd only keep them for 1, 2, 3 more days before letting them go. That if they'd just be a little more quiet, he'd let them go. But Cameron knows none of those promises were kept. The visions had been so real that to Cameron, it felt like he'd been there for everything they went through. Luckily, he hadn't felt anything, but it was as if he was in the room, with them. This room. Brian seems to gain some control over himself and lets go of the coyote. Cameron isn't able to stand with his weak, shaking legs and sits down heavily on the ground, looking up at the looming bear.
Brian kept calling your name and kept calling your name and you wouldn't answer. I told you to let me know if the visions were starting.
I couldn't. Brian waits, looking more impatient the more Cameron stammers, which only makes him stammer more.
I swear to fucking God, why do all you become whimpering little dipshits the second I lose control for like a second?
He reaches down, and Cameron cringes as He reaches down, and Cameron cringes as he's yanked up to his feet again. It's clear that Brian wants him to keep standing this time, so he does, steadying himself against the table behind him.
Quit that crying!
He does his best to stop, but the sobs kept coming. Brian, the visions, the people he just felt. It's not an easy thing to just shrug off.
I said to quit, not be quieter!
Cameron's mouth dries up even more, his tongue now sandpaper against the roof of his mouth, as the fear helps shock him into a statue-like state. Cameron knows he owes a lot to the sedative right now. Without it, he wouldn't be able to stop, and Brian might kill him.
That's better. But faster next time, got it?
Okay. Cameron opens his mouth to answer, but finds himself yanked forward suddenly, only to come to a horrible, jarring stop as the bear slams his knee into the coyote's torso. Cameron watches as the luminous arches writhe about, convulsing, almost like they're mirroring the coyote's inner turmoil. The knee is so big compared to himself that it seems to cover most of his chest and stomach.
You can thank your boyfriend for that one, and he still earned you one more.
Brian finally pulls back and Cameron crumples to the ground, unable to process what Brian is saying. Not that he'd be able to understand it anyway. The coyote lets down a guttural groans the coyote yells out guttural groans over and over again.
Huh? What's that you're saying?
Brian taunts him from above, and Cameron responds with a whooping gasp, pressing his face into the floor in agony.
I asked you a fucking question!
Cameron is lifted into the air again, feeling his feet kick around for a purchase on the ground as he once again dangles from his shirt, the fabric stretching to the point that Cameron can hear the threads popping within his collar. Cameron cracks open an eye and sees Brian drawing back a huge paw, and Cameron manages to choke out a few words with the tiny amount of air he's gathered into his collapsed lungs.
Nothing.
Cameron wheezes loudly between the words, knowing that this is exactly what Brian likes. But how can he stop himself? He's not even sure if stopping himself will help. Maybe that will only trigger Brian into hurting him more. But to Cameron's relief, the bear pauses, then slowly drops his fist. Cameron sees the wild look in Brian's eyes, gradually leaving as he stares at the gasping coyote in his grasp.
Good. Guess I'll save the other for later then.
The bear lets go, and Cameron slumps back to his knees, curling up again in the fetal position.
Now, what was it you saw?
He didn't feel any pain. But now, he does. Speak up, Arturo. The whole class needs to hear you. He's in front of 20 curious, attentive eyes while his paws shake, almost making his what? I'm starting to be like Arturo and just stuttering over the words. He is in front of 20 curious, attentive eyes while his paws shake, almost making his papers rattle. He's had less than a year to learn a new language, and now they expect to give him an entire book report. He'd give anything to be in his room, gaming on his new PlayStation 2. But first, he has to figure out how to survive these next 5 minutes. He's playing his PlayStation 4 in his dorm when Maria walks in. Hey, beautiful. You able to get some sleep? He doesn't look up from his game. Oh, you should know. Oh, you should know. Try to get a good accent. Oh, you should know my overflow toe. Definitely not a Maria accent, but I am trying, goddammit. That makes him look up. Huh? She looks confused, frustrated. Born and sworn, and to mourn and forlorn? He puts down the controller and stands up. Baby, what? Arturo installs a lock on the medicine cabinet. He helps her eat healthy. He helps make sure she goes to bed at the right time. Whenever she feels a mood swing approaching, high or low, they prepare together. Maria once cried and told him that she wasn't worth it, that he should find someone that isn't an unpredictable mess. He told her that she wasn't she was. Yikes, the other way. He told her she was definitely worth it, and that they just need to be prepared. Arturo opens his eyes and then cringes at the ache in his head. Not an ache, but an explosion ripping through his skull, his brains, and down his spine. It hurts so much that he lets out a sound that's a half moan, half scream. This time, it seems to take even longer for him to understand where and when he is. He had been moving as fast as he could without actually running or jogging, since he isn't even capable of doing that. He guessed he'd have been probably made it 2 miles away from Echo, so 5 more to go. He had just been thinking about how he was walking almost exactly like his grandfather did after his stroke, and Arturo had thought, now we'll actually have something to bond over, before it happened. A dizzy spell unlike all the others made him stumble, like he was looking over the edge of a cliff. Then anxiety like he'd never known before overcame him, making his heart beat so fast Arturo was convinced it was going to explode. He got on his knees, started praying for help, and then... Now he's here, on the ground, his nose and forehead stinging from where it slammed into the asphalt, and the rest of his body just aches. He'd had a seizure, and even though he's never had one before, he knows that's what happened. At least he was on his knees, so his face didn't have far to fall. Still, he is left feeling so exhausted, so defeated, that he just wants to lay there. He'd been in a half-dream state, completely confused as he stared around him, memories flicking through his mind like a viewmaster. An hour had passed, maybe two, before he finally understood what his situation was again. He almost wants to go back to that confused state, pretend it's a dream. But now he's crying because he is because how is he going to take care of Maria if he can barely walk, barely talk? She's good at taking care of herself, but he needs to be there, just in case. He needs to live, and he needs to get better. And while he's glad to be out of Echo, he knows Cameron is still there. And if Devin is gone too, he knows the bear would only want him to save Cameron. Get up, Arturo. All your friends need you. Eventually, he slowly sits up, his paws shaking so badly, he's worried he's having another seizure. But eventually, he steadies himself. He needs to keep moving. So, with a deep, shuddering breath, Arturo starts to carefully get up, and that's when he sees it. It stares, and Arturo just stares back silently. In that moment, he's sure that he actually did die. That what he assumed was a seizure was really just the end. And now this thing, this embodiment of death, is here to take him. Instead of moving towards him, though, or really acknowledging him in any way, it doesn't move at all. Arturo notices something out of the corner of his eye, and though it's distant, he sees lights. Headlights. Multiple headlights moving in both directions on the landscape. The highway. Arturo looks back, but it's gone. With nothing else to do, he starts to get up. He's sure that he didn't see those lights before he collapsed, but a lot of memory is missing. Several patches between when he was shot and now are unaccounted for. And what he just saw is probably product of his family. Geez, that typo got me. And what he just saw is probably a product of his failing brain. So, wordlessly, he walks in his wide stance with his arms swinging awkwardly, knowing that nothing will be the same again. After telling Brian everything he can remember, the bear seems satisfied.
Did you try and talk to him?
No, I didn't have time. Brian waves away the coyote's excuse.
Just do it next time. I won't interrupt you.
Cameron wants to tell the bear that he's not even sure he can talk to them. Because after all this time, he's starting to think that he shouldn't even be able to. He can see what's happened in the past. Maybe even what might happen in the future. But that's it. He only sees a record. But if they acknowledge him, communicate with him, then that's something that he doesn't want anything to do with. Devin had said that he doesn't believe in demons, but that's what Cameron thinks they are. All of those unexplainable forces that haunt and torment the living. It's all demons. Brian disappears again, and because he doesn't grab the coyote, Cameron assumes he isn't meant to follow him. A minute or two later, Cameron hears a loud snorting sound, and he flinches. Then it happens again, and Cameron looks over to see Brian leaning over the counter, head low. Combined with the sound and posture, the coyote knows that the bear is definitely snorting something. He'd been in a similar position many times in this past. Either way, he's not about to ask the bear what he's snorting. He can only hope that he can only hope that it's something that knocks Brian out, or at least slows him down. After sniffing and dabbing at his nostrils, the bear returns to Cameron's side.
Well, let's go outside to a spot I think you'll get better reception or whatever.
Before Cameron can finally comprehend what Brian just said, he finds himself being forced over the huge bear's shoulder before being lifted in a fireman's carry. Cameron closes his eyes, clutching into the fur of Brian's back as the bear lumbers heavily around, listening to the sounds of a screen door swinging open, then shut. He can sense that they're outside, the air warm from the lingering heat of the day. Then, he finds his feet coming into contact with the ground. Cameron looks at his surroundings while Brian ambles around 5 feet away, kicking at the dirt and foliage. It's twilight now, at least as far as Cameron can tell. The eerie, ominous red hasn't gone away, even though they're well past sunset. The first time he tried shrooms, colors did change, but in the sense that they became more vibrant and saturated. The forest looks just like it did when he had the vision about the static entity. He was with Dev then. How is this even happening? Who is having these thoughts? Devin?
What?
Cameron jolts back to the present, even though it's not the present, because time has stopped existing, and this is just a moment in a never-ending series of moments. Is time always happening at once? Brian is still looking at him with a piercing gaze, and his fur is once again writhing about on his body, as if it's come back to life. Sorry, I'm having a hard time concentrating. He lost himself for a moment and just blurted the first name that came to his mind to center himself and confirm that he still exists. The trip reaching the same levels he experienced in high school that had sent him running in an unfamiliar public park, his friends having to chase and pin him down.
Ha! I'll fucking bet! I didn't even measure what I gave you, 'cause I thought you'd only take one swallow. It was a fuck ton, though.
Oh. There's nothing he can add to that. It's scary, but it's the way Brian is acting that's really scaring him. Whatever he took is very obviously kicking in, and it's definitely not calming him down.
Something wrong.
Brian's tone is taunting and cruel, and to Cameron's horror, Brian comes closer, right next to the coyote. No, I'm just feeling off because of the shrooms. Oh, guess we have another ad break. Sorry about that again. 2:31:45. I guess it's every hour. I thought my ad break at 1:22 would stop it, or change the timing. Well, I tried. I tried so hard. Well, let's continue then. I think. Alright, let's continue.
Oh, shit! You're on like 3 milligrams of Xannies. You're on 3 milligrams of Xannies too. I totally forgot. Fuck, you better not fall asleep or go all delirious on me, understand? Because if you do, I'll probably just kill you.
Cameron stays still. He's reached the stage where he feels solidly stuck in a deep dream, one that he'll be in for several more hours. Who's dreaming?
Hey, what's the matter? Am I making you feel uncomfortable? Is there something wrong with me?
Cameron shakes his head with tiny jerks, barely moving it.
I asked a fucking question! I'm not noticing you're on... I'm noticing you're on something. That's all. Well, no shit, kid. You think I was blowing my nose in there or something?
Well, I was thinking maybe we were going to see things together, and you would take a downer, but it looks like you're on an upper.
Why would I want to see that shit when I got you? I don't like the ones you out there. I'd be high. I don't like the ones out here. That's why I took it. Wanna guess what I'm on?
Cameron doesn't, but now that he knows cowering isn't going to help him, he plays along. Maybe cocaine? Adderall?
You fucking kidding me, kid? Adderall? Do I look like a college brat trying to pull an all-nighter? Shit's like a cup of coffee to me.
Cameron doesn't say anything, but Brian keeps quiet, like he's waiting for the next guess.
Meth? Too expensive, but close enough. It's methadone. Okay. Sorry, I never really did stims.
The only stims I do are autistic stims. Hey! Alright, back to sadness. There we go. Not after what happened to his mother.
I want to myself.
God damn it, Zephrixo. I want to stim myself. Anyway. Not after what happened to his mother. Bath salts. Oh, no. And it feels fucking amazing! What follows is the sight of a 500-pound bear awkwardly dancing and swinging his massive arms around violently, growling and laughing. It's terrifying. And the crazed bear is shadowboxing about 20 feet away. Cameron begins to realize he might be able to run. With his muscles weak from the sedative, and his mindset absolutely fucked from the hallucinogen, he might not be able to outrun Brian. He's starting to forget that he even exists. Still, he might be able to hide. The desert is full of cracks and crevices that he might be able to squeeze into or wait out. Brian is there, heaving for breath.
Fuck. Gotta relax. It's been a while, so getting a huge rush. Gotta remember. I ain't as young as I used to be. My heart's probably gonna give out any day now.
Please, please let your heart give out. Please just die and let this nightmare, this decades-long nightmare you've created, end. Honestly, this is every Echo fan right now. Well, except a certain someone I know. Not naming any names. Where was I?
Oh, way too much. Anyway, it's making me forget what we're even doing. Remind me again, little buddy.
Brian smiles at the young coyote, and Cameron takes that as his cue to smile back. If Cameron is remembering correctly, stimulants make people more empathetic. Brian,
I'm an empath.
Makes people more empathetic, and he hopes he can tap into that. I'm going to help you calm down some spirits. Cameron wants to say, and then you'll let me go, but Brian doesn't keep promises, and bringing it up might only trigger him to do more terrible things. That, and now that they're outside, Cameron is sure he can feel Devon's presence, alive but hurt, and the coyote is desperately trying to figure out what to do next. But Brian seems to know exactly what's on Cameron's mind.
What about your bear? Maybe I was just getting the wrong vibes, but I was thinking he was your boyfriend.
Of course, that's why I thought, of course, that's why I'm doing this.
Oh fuck, I forgot to tell you he's overheated in the van. Oh, got distracted with you and left him in there too long.
A few seconds passed, during which Cameron's mind is telling him 10 different ways to react. Cameron knows for a fact that Devon's alive. But should he act terrified to satisfy the bear? Brian interrupts him with a giggle.
Nah, he's fine. Just want to make sure the feelings between the two of you are mutual. Your face said it all.
Brian laughs again, and even lets out a high-pitched whoop that echoes around the quiet forest. Not knowing what else to do, Cameron does his best to go along with Brian's game and forces out a laugh. Holy shit, you really got me there. I thought my heart was about to give out.
Damn, you're cute. Cutest little Yoda I've ever seen.
Oh, thanks. But you know drugs. They make everything seem better. I think I'm more on the ugly side of things, if I'm being honest. I mean, I haven't showered in a while either. Cameron pretends to self-cautiously smooth over his head fur.
Nah, you were cute before I amped up. Also, I've had guys shit themselves, either because they were scared, or they thought it would stop me doing what I did.
Is this horrible to say? But I would low-key be curious to see what Brian's F list would be. It would be terrifying, but dear goodness, that would be a rabbit hole to look at. It's tragically curious and intriguing. Anyway, back to the drama.
It didn't. Because this
I
shit...
want to myself.
Thanks.
It didn't. Because this shit I'm on makes me horny as fuck. So not only do you look cute, it is cute. Thinking that it might help you.
Of course. Cameron saw the torture Brian inflicted, and the bear had to be drugged up whenever he was doing it. Cameron can especially remember Daniel's experience and his thoughts. 10, 15, sometimes even 20 hours of non-stop physical and mental torture, and it would go on and on and on, and wouldn't stop until the bear's exhausted body would pass out. Then he would sleep for an entire day, sometimes longer, before the process would begin again.
But luckily for you, we got more important things to do.
Come, stand here next to me. Okay, I'm gonna help you. Cameron tries to make it sound like he's on the bear's side. Who's thinking these thoughts? Oh, man, it's really getting hot in here from all this. Probably because I haven't opened the windows or turned the fan on. But as Cameron moves to stand beside Brian, it finally seems to sink in that Brian is going to kill them. Not because it's obvious. Doing the fan changing as I'm speaking the lines. Not because it's obvious, but because he's starting to pick up on the bear's thoughts. He is reading his mind. He thinks he's murdered Artie, but he didn't. For whatever reason, either because he's outside, or because he's spacing out even more, he's certain of that. He'd never been close friends with the cat, But Cameron had gotten to know him, and that feeling, that amalgamation of a person that is Artie, it's still out there. Cameron mentally reaches out to the cat, but it's so far, so distant, and something is wrong with Artie. His amalgamation is missing some parts. Devin's is still full and nearby, and it shines like a beacon in the darkness of the barren desert. So, while Brian is telling him to contact people he murdered and buried under the ground, Cameron instead reaches out for Devin. A few minutes later, after Brian left, Devin became frantic. Even though he knows it won't help, it will only make things worse. The instinctual part of his brain overwhelms everything. With low, bearish grunts and growls, he yanks and pulls and lunges with all of his weight, just trying to get something other than his own wrists to break. He'd already contemplated dislocating, or even breaking his thumbs to pull his paws out from the cuffs, like he'd seen characters do in some movies. But just by looking at the metal, he can tell they're too well fitted for that to do any good. He could gnaw his thumbs off, and he'd still be stuck. He still yanks, so he just yanks until blood is seeping into his paw fur, and even with that added lubrication, they don't budge. Please, please, please. It's the only words he says with each grunt of exertion. Finally, as the drugged water begins to take its effect, Dev slumps on his side, crying. He sobs harder than he ever has in his adult life. Cameron, I'm so sorry, Cameron, please. He killed them, all because he needed to find out. Turns out he will find out, because they are going to die. How could he do this to Cameron? How could he be so stupid, so naive, so inconsiderate, selfish? In a flash of rage and desperation, Devin viciously gnaws at his right forearm, snarling. Again, he knows it's senseless, pointless, detrimental, but the self-loathing is all-consuming, and he mostly just wants to punish himself. After several seconds, he stops, and after blinking away the blur of tears, he sees that while some fur is missing, he barely broke the skin. Devin lets out a hopeless, despairing laugh. Despairing laugh, even while tears stream down his face. The metal enclosure makes the laugh sound loud and hollow, and that's when Devin stops as he realizes how unhinged he sounds, how he shouldn't be acting like this. He doesn't have a right to break down. His friend is dead, and his best friend. Devin knows he needs to do everything he can to get out. The next time Brian is within reach, he's going to do everything he can to make sure he dies. He'll rip his throat out. But while that fire is rekindled in his chest, he can't fight whatever the drug the bear gave him is. Devin suspects that it's making him a bit delirious too. Either way, it's powerful, and Devin knows he probably won't be able to do much for another hour or two. So he lays down, trying to keep an ears open so he can be ready for the old bear if he comes back. If Cameron dies, it doesn't matter if I escape. I won't be able to live with that. Maddie. Mateo. Huh? No one's used his second name since. Why couldn't you just watch her? Devin stays curled up because he knows he's imagined that. Or his brain is playing tricks on him. Or, Devin, it's me. I'm here. Cam? Devin stares at the swirling patterns and lines. Are you okay? No. None of us are okay. You're not okay. I don't even know if you're alive. Devin tries to move towards Cameron, but he stays at a constant 10 feet away, no matter how hard the bear tries to get to him. Devin, I am real. Cameron carefully enunciates each of those words. I'm doing this through, my mind, I think. I'm fucking psychic, remember? Well, now I know this is my bullshit. This is what got us into this nightmare in the first place. Devin. Yeah, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck you! You are exactly what I was hoping you'd be. You don't exist. My sick, fucked up mind is making up this version of you I have no right to create, and... Devin's voice trembles with emotion. He's never had a dream before where he's felt this real, this alive. And of course, it's happening when he's feeling at his absolute worst. I just wish you were real so I could actually tell you how sorry I am. But I can't take any of this back. Even if we somehow make it out. And you look fine. But I know you're not fine. Because you're with that goddamn bear. It's quiet for a moment. The only sound being Devin's sobbing. Devin, I know there isn't much I can do to convince you that I'm real. All that I can say is that I am real. And that I love you dearly. I love you too. And yeah, Brian is hurting me. Just like he's hurting all of us. What's he doing to you? What happened to me not being real? What happened to me not being real? Well, just in case. Are you okay? The look on Cameron's face makes Devin's stomach drop. Well, not really, no. But he's keeping me alive, so that's what's important. But you see those patterns?
Yeah?
Well, Brian drugged me with shrooms, and I'm tripping absolute balls right now. Hallucinogens enhance my abilities, and I think I kind of created this space. Oh, I really can't make this stuff up.
Well... maybe you're right. Maybe he drugged me too, you know. This could still all be me.
You don't give psychedelics to... You don't give psychedelics to someone you're trying to sedate. Anyway, it turns out I'm not that different from my mom. It's all arches. I see them when I take certain drugs. Devin looks up at the patterns, and for the first time, he feels like this might actually be real.
Cameron?
It's me! Yes!
Cameron! Oh my god, please let this be real! Baby, I'm so sorry!
No. We don't have time right now. Also, I kind of read your mind, so I already know. Sorry about that. By the way, it's just happening automatically. But I can sense Brian's thoughts too. And now I know where you are, where the van is, that you're in a set of handcuffs, and I know where the keys are. I'll get you out somehow.
Cameron, honey, please don't do anything that might get you hurt. Please.
Devin sees Cameron's lips tremble.
Devin, you know I can't...
Devin, you know I can't promise that in this situation. Neither of us can. But we're doing this together.
Cameron!
Shit.
Brian, is he there with you?
I'm gonna be fine, but I gotta go. I love you.
Cameron! No, damn it, please!
He crumples into the darkness, feeling helpless. He should be there with Cameron, not here, sleeping and doing nothing. We're doing this together. With a great deal of effort, Devin smothers the frustration of terror, knowing that he should have some faith in his boyfriend. If Cameron thinks he can do this, then Devin realizes he has to believe him. He just wishes he could finally believe what just happened is real, even though Cameron had convinced him at that moment. So, he continues to rest, wanting to see if his coyote comes to free him, and hopefully then he can finally get his claws on Brian.
You've been standing there for a good 10 minutes. So, what you see?
Well, I'm having trouble because they won't talk to me.
Oh? And why's that?
I think it's because you're here, and they're scared of you. Maybe if you...
Cameron screams, clawing and clutching at the huge fist on the... Cameron screams, clawing and clutching at the huge fist on his ear. Brian twitching it viciously before lifting up so that Cameron's feet actually lift off the ground. He didn't know it was possible to feel that much pain from his ears, even though he knows they're sensitive.
Ah! Stop! Stop!
You sneaky fucking... He violently shakes Cameron, and the coyote twists his body, grabbing the bear's forearm and trying to get his lungs lifted up and wrapped around the bear's bicep to lessen the pressure. But Brian won't allow it.
You know what? You said everything out loud just now.
What?
You know exactly what.
Cameron is slammed up against the trunk of the tree, the impact resonating through his body. Instantly, Brian's huge, rugged muzzle is right next to his own, snorting heavily. Cameron fights as best as he can, but his feet are off the ground again, and he kicks and twists, but the grip is more powerful than anything he's felt before. He can actually feel his eyes bulge, and his tongue stick out involuntarily. And once again, he finds himself drowning. In that moment, it isn't the crushing pressure of his neck or the horrid, rancid breath that's coming from the old bear that Cameron notices most. It's that Brian doesn't seem angry. He doesn't seem enraged that the coyote has been contacting Devin. He doesn't seem upset that Cameron broke his word to help the old bear with his demons. Instead, Brian looks excited, ecstatic, all the while staring right into Cameron's face, watching the coyote's mouth open and close noiselessly. Vaguely, Cameron can sense a battle taking place inside Brian. He desperately wants to have his way with Cameron, but he also wants Cameron to exorcise the ghosts. But Cameron can also sense that Brian is realizing his plans were doomed from the start. How would he ever hide the fact that he killed a loving couple in this infamous, abandoned town? He knows people will look for them, unlike his previous clients and victims. The bear is deciding that they're all going to die. This is the end, and he'll end it with one final victim. It doesn't fucking matter! Brian hisses in Cameron's face. It doesn't fucking matter. Something moves out of the corner of Cameron's eye, and he looks to see a somewhat familiar face. Its black, void-like features with swirling red eyes stare at him. It's watching him too, like it's just as fascinated as Brian. Cameron senses very little intention or emotion from this creature, but he finally realizes its purpose in this forest is simple. Record the terrible things that happen in it. Cameron is about to become one of its next recordings. The coyote's vision blurs and one paw drops, to slip into Brian's pocket, disguising it as him trying to push the bear away. He feels and finds the single key that he knew would be there. God damn it, you're a fucking cute one, you know? Brian's voice trembles with cruel, passionate emotion and nuzzles the coyote. He squeezes harder, and Cameron's eyes roar up, all while putting the key in his own pocket, but he's not sure it matters. Brian isn't letting up. As he fades into the darkness, Cameron feels a part of himself die. The trip peaks, and suddenly, Cameron is everything, everywhere, all at once. He's a trailer home in the Northwest. He's a desert lake. He's a broken road in the middle of nowhere. He's being hit by a van. He's a train cutting through the wilderness. Oh my god. Marsh was telling me about something that was like that last line where he's like the wilderness part. Oh, sorry. That he was like, he's like, oh, the van part, or not the van part. He was like, something in there is like, yeah, this was like was it like a callback to a character? And I was like, oh, that's nice. I just realized it. The desert lake, the van. Oh my gosh. Train, I think I might know. Anyway. Sorry, just had to interrupt. Someone hand me a gun so I could shoot Brian in the head. Yes, honestly, really. He's been shot in the head. He's been hung from a tree. He's been beaten to death. He's swimming under an arch. He's in a space shuttle smashing into an ocean. He's a dead town. Dead, but with working reflexes, using tools still clutched in its grasp. Cameron disappears, and these thoughts, these feelings are no longer his, because he isn't who he is. He is everything. And because of that, he can see everything. To be continued. Ah, come on. It gets a bit finicky when I try and save. There we go. We'll just save here. Override. Preferences. Load. Oh, thank you. The reading has concluded. Alright, back to the main menu. Thank you for the pets. Aw. Running up that hill, episode 9, playing in the background. Awesome. Love to see it. Alright, folks, that concludes it for today. I'm gonna hop up pretty quickly because I need to get dinner fast and then head off to a movie night. So it's been very nice hanging out with y'all and just, yeah, going through this. Even if there is a lot of trauma, it's nice to at least experience stuff with y'all. Oh, hey, Live. You need to get pet after that reading. Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. Did you pet me too? Oh, you petted me. You're so nice. Ah. Well, as always, I really appreciate y'all coming, so thanks again. I'm starting to feel really hungry now, and I'm starting to get dizzy like Cameron. So, I should get going soon, so we're gonna raid somebody. Who are we gonna raid? We are going to raid a good old Marshy Marsh. It's Mr. Marshy Marsh, Marshmallow Bears. He's doing a special event. He is reading Dawn Tide, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm curious to see what he thinks, and maybe watch the replay of it too, just to see what I missed. I don't think I'll be able to watch it because of the movie night, like right now, but yeah, looking forward to it. Excuse me. I didn't mean to copy the clip. Raid channel. Marsh, where are you? Okay. Let's start the raid. Alright, so, as always, I appreciate y'all coming. Thank you all so much for watching. Oh, we're watching Interstellar. Or Interstella. It's the Daft Punk music video thing that's turned into a full movie. Anyway, I gotta quickly raid. Alright, thank you all so much for watching. And remember, good vibes bring good times. Take care, folks!